Welcome to Stars Matter in the Until Saturday feed. I'm Mitch Light, joined by Ari Wasserman. Ari, a national college football reporter for us, covers the nation and recruiting. Ari, fresh off of a trip to South Bend, Indiana, your first time there. Quite the ball game you saw. How you doing, buddy?
It was a wonderful trip. Definitely a bucket list stadium, and the university's campus is truly remarkable. And the fact that we got to see a game that was decided at the last minute, the last second, the last play is something I'll never forget. It was super, super fun.
Yeah, a rare walk-off in football. Also joined by Grace Rayner. Grace, a national reporter for us as well, covers recruiting. And Grace was back in her old stomping grounds, Clemson, South Carolina. Also saw a very good game, an overtime game, some drama there. So how was the return, Grace? And welcome to the pod.
Oh, thanks. It was a lot of fun. Heck of a game. It was much closer than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it was a really good time. Seeing Florida State up close was pretty cool.
And also joined by Manny Navarro, covers Miami for us and recruiting. Manny, back from a trip to the couch on Saturday, a familiar stomping ground. I'm sure you had a lot of couch time, a lot of good snacks as you monitored mini games for us. So you kept an eye on the Hurricanes, but I know you were watching the game that Grace was at.
Yeah, I was really impressed with how Clemson played in that game, believe it or not. I thought for sure Florida State was going to go in there and take care of business, but it was fun. It was a fun Saturday.
Yeah, it's good. Just you guys travel or have traveled a lot to games. I spend about 15 straight hours on the couch every Saturday. It's good times.
Well, Mitch, nobody asked you about your trip this weekend. Just because you're the host doesn't mean you don't get to tell us what you did this weekend. You had some father-son time this weekend.
Yeah,
huh?
father-son and family time. Went to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for family weekend to visit Gabe for the Georgia Tech Wake Forest football game. Had a good time. Georgia Tech looked very, very good after some shaky. Although they played well in the opener against Louisville, did not play great against Ole Miss, but looked really good. Won that game. But yeah, great time. Hung out with Gabe, a bunch of his friends. Spent a lot of time on campus. Some good food there. So had a great time. And I appreciate all of my colleagues for picking up the slack. It was not the best weekend.
I mean, I got to tell you, if I were a college football editor, I certainly would take vacation on one of the 10 fall Saturdays a year.
Well, that's my second one that I've had off. My nephew got married
quite a bit. I've noticed. Yeah,
I'll be around this Saturday though, so I'll be there for you.
I want to know, how was the? Didn't you have a huge dinner with like all of his fraternity buddies?
Yes, we did. I get into that. I have a food etiquette question for the panel, but really it's directed at Ari. But I will get to that in a bit. But good show today. We're going to talk about the big news at Michigan State and how that affects the recruiting landscape. There are a few notable 2024 commitments and a bunch of commitments in the class of 25 that we're going to get to. We're going to hit on a few kind of recruiting pipelines, what's gone wrong and what's gone right with some of them, just some big-time programs. We'll have mailbag questions and trivia. But first, let's talk Michigan State, and we're going to talk recruiting too, but also it's just this is a college football podcast in addition to recruiting, and it's big news. I guess formally firing Mel Tucker today. I want to roundtable this first. If you were the decision maker at Michigan State, who would you hire? I'm going to start with you, Manny.
Well, I think they've got a pretty good recruiter over at Ohio State who's the offensive coordinator. What's his name again? The guy who's getting all those receivers every single year. Oh yeah, him. I'd make a huge push for that guy.
Brian Hartline.
Yes, Brian Hartline.
Okay, I like it.
I think it's the only thing that makes sense, to be honest.
Only thing that makes sense. Wow. That is very bold. Ari?
Can I bring Nick Saban back?
Okay, let's just say Nick Saban's not going back.
You said I was in charge and I could bring anybody I wanted
back.
No,
you're in charge to make the decision. That doesn't mean you can bring whoever you want. You can make the hire. It's a two-way street. They need to accept the job, Ari. You can offer the job, but the person has to accept the job.
Yeah, well, I would offer the job to Nick Saban, and if he didn't come, then I would probably try Kirby Smart, and then okay, all right. I'm sorry. I know I'm annoying you, Mitch. There are a few coaches that that kind of jump out to me. I think what Mike Elko's done at Duke in a short period of time is super interesting. I think Dave Clawson at Wake Forest has found a way to win much bigger than his school's profile. I'm very interested in people at Michigan State who have proven at other places that they can not only build a program, but win bigger than their previous college profile. Lance Leipold is another one. and of course Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. I think I would probably choose one of those.
Who would you choose?
I probably would go with Mike Elko. The thing I like about Mike Elko is his diverse background as a recruiter. He's kind of recruited to all sorts of different places and has done a pretty good job of raising the bar at Duke in such a short amount of time. And I like that he would know exactly what buttons to press if he were hired there.
Grace?
I like those. I like Clausen. I like Elko. I think I would maybe go Sean Lewis, though.
Ding.
Head coach experience. Colorado's been must-see TV, and I think what has impressed me the most about him is just like the way he's adapted and took this job to maybe sort of elevate his profile. I think he's like the perfect combination of a safe but still kind of flashy hire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he would be my choice too, and I probably would have said the same thing even if he did not go to Colorado. Like I remember, you look at Syracuse's trajectory. I think it was the second season under Dano Babers when they won 10 games, and I remember looking, okay, who's their offensive coordinator? Sean Lewis, young guy, and then Kent State hired him, and he did a very good job at a very, very difficult place to win there, and then made the sort of unconventional decision to leave a head coaching position to go to Colorado. And I think the fact that he was hired by Dion and he's thrived under Dion shows some adaptability too. I mean, that's not an easy, most coaches are just football coaches. They just want to put their head down and dial up ball plays, whatever. But when you're at Colorado with what that has become there, you're dealing with a lot of distractions and he's, continuing to
Didn't we have like a 35-minute argument about Kenny Dillingham's age when he got hired at ASU? Does that not matter anymore to you?
Kenny Dillingham had not been a head coach. So was head coach for like 5 years.
The Kent State stint makes him more likely to succeed.
I wasn't anti Kenny Dillingham. I just thought he was young. And yes, being a head coach for 5 years trumps not being a head coach at all.
Yeah. I'm just surprised you would go with somebody at 37 to take over a program that's
37 is not young. It's older than you.
It is.
Yeah. I wouldn't hire you.
All right. Would Brian Hartline do it?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I really don't know. I think he would be a good candidate, and I think it's a really good idea. I don't know if that's what he wants to do. I'm not sure he knows what he wants to do. I mean, I haven't talked to him about it in a year or so. Things change, and I'm sure he's thought about it quite a bit because he's going to be a hot coaching candidate at every place that has an opening. But, there's a difference too, and the thing that we have to discuss isn't just that Michigan State's a Power 5 job in the Big Ten East and all that stuff. It's like you also have to go fix a place that's been through quite a bit of turmoil too. And there's a little extra layer of dysfunction within the university and all that stuff that has kind of permeated, I don't know if that's the right word, through multiple sports and it's just it seems like a heavier lift to me than I would want to deal with. And I think there's a reason why Luke Fickell passed on the job when they were interested in him before, right? Am I remembering this correctly? Didn't they want him first and then he decided to go?
And I know there's no more divisions, Ari, but it's also seemingly at a time when your three biggest rivals, I guess you would say, are peaking.
Are really good.
Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan are all top. Are they all in the top five? I don't. They're all top 5 caliber teams. I do want to say one name that you threw out there, Ari, which is interesting to me, Dave Clawson. Most people think he's got a great gig at Wake Forest. He has turned down overtures from other schools, but I think he's at that age. I'm not sure. He's a few years older than I am. I think he's he's maybe late 50s, where if he's going to make a move, Grace, what is it?
Y'all have the same birthday, don't you?
Yes, with the same birthday, not the same birth date. But I should know how old he is. Thanks for remembering that, Grace. But if he's going to make a move, it's going to be now. That's right. He's probably got another 5 to 7 or more years in him. So if he gets to a point where 3 or 4 more years and he doesn't leave, then he's probably at Wake for life. And again, he's got a great situation there, but you never know what makes a guy tick. Maybe he wants that shot at a Power 5 school where he can legit has a chance to win a national title. So it seems to be a good candidate pool out there when you're talking about guys like Mike Elko, Dave Clawson.
There's one other name, Mitch. Can I bring him in?
Of course.
I think Charles Huff at Marshall's an interesting candidate too. Somebody who, has coached at Penn State and Alabama and has recruited at a very high level. I think he's won multiple recruiting of the year, recruiter of the year awards from the recruiting services, and was partly the reason why Penn State got Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders and J.C. Latham went to Michigan. So Alabama. I don't know why I said Michigan. That would have been a great pool for Michigan though if they would have gotten 5-star offensive tackle out of the South like that. But he's a dark horse too, and somebody that I think would be an interesting candidate as well. But whoever takes the job has to be willing and motivated by cleaning up a mess, which I think is an extra layer of thought that you have to put into this job opening.
Yes.
That's why I think you have to get a former head coach. I don't know that this is like someone's first job. Yeah,
good point. So on a recruiting front, they've suffered 2 decommitments in recent days, or about a week. No surprise there. Their class is now, they're down to 11 commitments, 55, ranked 55 nationally. And I've seen some stock, tell me if this line of thinking makes sense, guys. When a coach leaves, even if you're not in the transfer window period, you've got 30 days for kids to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that matters now with this, because it's like kids, it's not like they can transfer and go play at a different school. They got to finish the semester academically. And if they're going to transfer, they can just transfer in the normal fall window anyway. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of turnover. Kids going to want to leave because they weren't recruited by this new guy, and the new guy wanting to clean anything up. But is that, as you guys understand the rules, does that make sense that the transfer window thing isn't going to really come into play here, because guys, they have to finish the semester?
Well, it's just not typical that a coach gets canned in September once the season starts. So I think I'm with you on that. I think,
and the rules new too. So Manny, you agree that interpretation of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as them losing players in the middle of the year, I don't think that's going to happen. I do obviously think they have to have somebody in place by the end of November, early December. They can't take their time with this, or the exodus is just going to be ridiculous. Yep. So to me, yeah, I mean, I think you probably punt on this recruiting class and just hope you can bring in transfers, whoever the new guy is, that he can bring some guys with him.
Yep.
What do you do though about the because it's week 4, right? So this is the redshirt threshold. Those guys might bolt, right?
Yeah, I guess they could.
Yeah.
If they've played 4 games already and they want to preserve the year of eligibility, they could just leave. They could stay in school but leave the program. I guess I don't know the logistics of that. I mean, they got to have enough guys to field the team. I don't know. There's guys who are seniors who that doesn't, I guess, still affects them. But if you're in your 5th year, whatever, there's a lot of moving parts there, and just obviously not a great situation all the way around. Had some notable commitments last week. Brandon Baker, offensive tackle, 5-star, number 25 overall, but the number 1 offensive tackle from Mater Dei to Texas. And Ari, this is a guy that you had a good story about maybe 18 months ago. You called him, he's a kid from Southern California.
Has it been that long already? God,
I think so. You called him I forgot the headline we used, but it's here's the kid that the most important USC recruit in 2 years, and USC wasn't even his final 5. We talked in recent weeks about their lack of success at Mater Dei in this cycle, but I guess it's a huge blow for USC, but not surprising because again, they weren't even in his top 5.
Yeah, it's funny how you go from writing a story about how this is the most important recruit of the USC coaching tenure under Lincoln Riley in 2 years and maybe even more, because he's a 5-star offensive tackle in a state that just doesn't really produce that many offensive linemen. And, USC's entire thing probably when it comes to, winning playoff games and being built sturdy for the future is to shore up their lines on both sides of the ball. And then he doesn't even include USC in his top 5. And it gets even worse. I think there's 5 fringe top 100 players, top 100 or fringe top 100 players at Mater Dei in the 2024 class, and all of them are not going to USC. And that used to be a pipeline school for USC. The thought process was that when Lincoln Riley came in, that every single Southern California recruit was automatically going to go to USC, and now they're going 0 for 5 at a place where it was just second nature to get those kids. I don't know what's going on there. I know Antonio Morales is trying to report a story about it, but it is a really, really bad look, and whatever's going on there, they're going to have to figure it out because that school is really important to USC's future recruiting as well.
Yeah, we're going to go get more into that subject in a little bit. Notre Dame, Gerby Lambert, offensive tackle from Massachusetts, number 48 overall, and the number 2 offensive tackle. So the top 2 offensive tackles off the board. And then real quick on a commitment coming up, then I want to dive back into Notre Dame because they were one of the programs that made some hay in the 25 class. On Thursday, 5-star athlete Terry Bussey, if I'm pronouncing that right, from Timpson, Texas, which I looked at, looks like it's very, very East Texas. He is a 5-star athlete, plays quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back, has some just gaudy offensive numbers. I think it's a lower level school, but it just sounds like he is all over the field. Looks like Texas A&M at this point. He's a fun guy to look at, like how will he be utilized in college, but clearly a guy who is dangerous with the ball. But so Notre Dame got 4 commitments in the past 10 days. Deuce Knight, the quarterback we talked about last week from Mississippi. This is for the 2025 class. Running back Daniel Anderson from Arkansas. Athlete CJ May from Alabama. Defensive lineman Joseph Reif from Illinois. 3 of those guys were ranked. 3 of those guys are 4 stars. Reif is unranked right now, but the class ranks number 4 overall with 6 commitments. Georgia has 7 commitments, and Alabama has 6. And Penn State has 3 recent commitments. 5 in the class, but 3 since the whiteout. And I bring these 2 up not just because it's notable, but Notre Dame just had. They lost the game, but Ari, you were there. I guess you can speak to the environment. Like that's a great showcase for Notre Dame football. And then we all know that Penn State's whiteout is maybe the best showcase by any team every year in recruiting. So it's not surprising that both these programs got a little bump on the recruiting front after this weekend.
Yeah, I got to say that when I left or was leaving the stadium, Pete Sampson and I walked out together, our Notre Dame beat writer, and the lot for where we parked the car or for the media lot was kind of like a 10 or 15 minute walk away. So we were just talking, and like I just kind of hit me that I felt really bad for Notre Dame and their fans because they really did do enough to win that game on Saturday night. They face an Ohio State team that probably isn't peak version of itself. I don't know. We'll see how good they are later on in the year, but I don't look down at that Ohio State team on Saturday night and think that's the national champion this year. And they actually had a chance to show that they had closed the gap a little bit and can win a game like that. And it's not just about the playoff discussion this year or what it would mean for the program on the field this year, but it could have been a really huge, stake in the ground type of game to prove to recruits that they're headed in the right direction, and to be that close to winning and, having only 10 guys on the field the last 2 plays of the game, and
which the fans I'm sure didn't know about, or most of them probably didn't even know about.
I didn't count. I mean, I don't know how people count that fast. I couldn't see from the press box they only had 10 up there, and it was happening
you're
so
expecting
fast.
There to be 11, so you're not.
Yeah. It's also not my job to figure it out, but it's like they ran to the hole where the guy was missing. So,
right.
It's
good
just
coaching.
It's a tough look,
It's a tough yard, Ari. That was a really tough yard.
And they actually almost didn't get it.
I know. Yeah, Ari and I joked
they
about
wouldn't
this.
have.
Ryan Day, he can say what he wants. He won. Had 3 situations where they needed 1 yard. Didn't get it twice on a pass and 1 on an end around. And on the third one, they needed 6? They needed maybe a foot. And the other team only had 10 guys, and they ran to the spot where the guy wasn't there, and they still only made it by like 3 inches. So, I mean, I guess they're tough because they got that. I will say that this is no defense, obviously, because these coaches are paid millions and millions of dollars. But after like working sideline reporter for 7 years, I think one of the most amazing things is that teams are able to change personnel packages so quickly, like on every play. It is just it's chaos down there. But there's great communication, there's great signals, whatever like that. But guys coming on and off the field, if you just stare at the sidelines, it's kind of fun to watch. But again, they're paid a lot of money to get this stuff right.
I can barely count to 11 now, like let alone doing it in like 5 seconds. Like you have to do it really quickly. I've always marveled at how think about how tense that moment was and what was on the line, and the fact that Ohio State did some personnel changes. Like in that moment, how a coach could be like, actually, we only have 10 people out there. It's like I can understand why that could get away from you. I'm not saying it's excusable, but I know if I were a head coach, I would certainly have a hard time with that sort of thing too. So it's not an easy thing.
What do you think was going on in the headsets at that point? Grace coming off of her Tales from the Headset story about funny stories or communication issues that go on during games. I would love to hear what all the coaches were saying at that point.
Yeah, like 10 years from now when we do, or 5 years from now when we do part 2 of that story. I mean, I'm with Ari. Like, I feel like it's just absolute total chaos. And then, but I'd be curious, like, did someone notice it on the headset, and then it was too late? Or like, I don't, like, Ari, you were there. I was filing my Clemson story. Like, at what point did they realize this happened?
Is Ari with us?
Where did he go? Did he just leave?
Great moments and stars matter.
Oh
That was
gosh.
great. I mean, I'm sure the listener, well, if you're listening to the podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube, you saw there was a close up of Grace. Grace throws it to Ari, and we just come back. Grace just threw it to you, Ari, and they put in campaign.
You were the 11th guy on the field for Notre Dame there.
Yeah,
I was missing. Sorry.
You're missing a key tackle.
I was like, did I cut out? Like, did he just bounce?
Yeah, I just had to bounce for 13 seconds, but I'm back. You know what? You counted pretty quickly, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah. So
wait,
well,
when did they? Do you
the
know
deal was
like
basically
when coaches figured it out?
they knew, right? Ari? I mean, we've read the
Well,
postmortem.
they pretended to know after the game. And then on the press conference on Monday, they changed the story a little bit. So they were trying to act like they knew and that they didn't want to put somebody in the game because they didn't want to have a penalty. But I certainly would rather have a penalty and fool 11 people out there than run at 10 from a half yard, a quarter of a yard. And then Marcus Freeman said he didn't know until right before the ball was snapped. So that it's just when you think about how important certain wins are, like we talk about on the show all the time, that nobody's going to decide to go to Notre Dame because they won a game, or no one's going to decide not to go to Notre Dame because they lost a game in the last minute. But there are certain tent pole wins that like actually are proof of concept and are just like great vibes for the program that you could like look back to and say, hey, we did this or we did that. And the fact that they're not able to get it, it's like the 10-man thing is a bad look, but they won the game. They had the game won. And it's just it's a tough scene for Notre Dame because it's already hard enough to build a program there with some of the limitations that they have as a program, but then also too to have this stigma about you're not talented enough to play with these teams, and every time you play a Georgia or Ohio State or an Alabama, you get your ass kicked, and then to have them on the ropes like that on your home field and then blow it at the end there, it just seems like a huge missed opportunity just for the build of the program.
Yeah, I don't know how much negative recruiting goes on. I'm sure it does. It's something we don't really talk about a lot as a staff. It seems like back in the day, people would talk more about negative recruiting. But it's something, if you're considering Notre Dame and another school you're looking at, says, hey, look at Notre Dame, great program, great school. Marcus Freeman's a great guy. But look at some of the coaching decisions. When push comes to shove, are you going to be is the team going to be in the right position? You're going to have the right amount of guys in the field. If this stuff keeps happening, it could start hurting Notre Dame on the recruiting front. Like this one incident, maybe not, but you don't want to have the perception that you're not a well-coached program, I would think.
As a guy who covered Miami when Al Golden was the coach, Al Golden, of course, is the defensive coordinator now at Notre Dame. I'm not surprised that they had a snafu near the goal line.
Ooh.
It didn't have enough guys on the field. He was Al Golden and Mark D'Onofrio, who was the defensive coordinator at Miami, were infamous for not having enough guys near the line of scrimmage when teams had third and short or were near the goal line. And so Miami gave up a lot of easy touchdowns that way.
That's a coaching hire. We've all come to admit that it's so hard to figure out who's going to pan out and who's not. But I don't know what you thought at the time or what the perception down there, Manny. I was shocked that Al Golden did not do a better job because he took over a Temple program that was just awful, beyond awful, got them respectable, I think, to bowl game, whatever. And it just seemed like such a good hire and clearly didn't work out, clearly didn't have enough guys near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Northeastern guy, and I think he just came in with the wrong perspective on South Florida talent and Florida talent in general. He thought they could run a 3-4 scheme here, and he was just mistaken. There's just the recruits in this area are just not built to run what Penn State's run for years. Gotcha.
So I want to kind of tie that into South Florida. One of the 25 commits that Penn State got was Tyquay Hayes, a running back from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. It's kind of storied program. Book was written about that program before. And that is in Pittsburgh, right outside of Pittsburgh. That is a program that Penn State has struggled to recruit forever. In fact, I was talking to Matt Brown, one of my colleagues, one of our editors who went to Penn State. He says basically it dates back to the Mike Ditka era. Ditka was from Aliquippa, who went to Pitt. I think they signed a 4-star defensive end in the class of 2020, but really do not do well for whatever reason in Aliquippa. So they got a kid from there. So that got me thinking to pipelines, because we've been talking about USC and Mater Dei struggling there. One thing we've talked about, I know Grace, you and Seth Emerson might be looking at this later in the fall. For Georgia, for all the recruiting they've done in number 1 class, all that, they have not been as dominant in state as you would think. Nashville is not exactly a Tennessee stronghold. The rest of the SEC and Big Ten recruits there. So I thought this is kind of an interesting topic. We can throw out some other areas, but Manny, we talked a little offline about this. Your thought is that if Miami isn't recruiting South Florida well, it's more of like a Miami issue. It's not a specific program where kids are, coaches are steering kids away from Miami. That's historically hasn't really happened. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't ever get the sense that, certain colleges aren't necessarily welcome at the powerhouses down here in South Florida. I just think, it just kind of changes over time. Like there's eras when St. Thomas Aquinas, who's, been a perennial power and produced so many great players over the years, they sent a lot of players to Miami. And then there's, those periods where it just, for whatever year, they'll go on a 2 or 3 year run and they won't send a player to Miami. So it's just, South Florida is sort of just one of those examples where there's so much talent down here. Everybody in the country comes down here. It just kind of depends on what's going on with those college teams and which recruiters are down here at that time.
All right, anything come to mind from covering Ohio State recruiting? I assume Ohio State had I know Glenville, they had free run at all the powers in Ohio. Like, here's a question for you. I've always heard that Cincinnati isn't the Ohio State stronghold that you think it would be historically. Is that fair?
Well, it wasn't before Kerry Combs came at the beginning of the Urban Meyer era, and then they did a really good job down there. Now, the thing that Ohio State has always done really, really well is keep kids home in the state of Ohio, and Glenville was certainly one of the places that they did it a lot with, like Troy Smith and Ted Ginn Jr. and Eric Smith and Marshawn Lattimore. They got a lot of really good players out of Glenville during the last 20-year period. But one place that Ohio State is susceptible, or had been, if you go back and look, I think that if you found the data of all the players that Ohio State has offered legit committable offers to in the state of Ohio in the last 20 years, they might have only missed out on 5 total. Like, it's like that few. And I think Notre Dame has 3 of them. And the reason why is because Notre Dame has done such a good job in the state of Ohio and some of the places in Cincinnati and Cleveland going into the private Catholic schools and selling Notre Dame as an extension of that environment. But there haven't been any high schools, for the most part, in the state of Ohio that have turned their back on the home state program. I remember when Jackson Carman went to Clemson, that was like, he was from the Fairfield, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cincinnati, I believe. And I was there that day when he committed to Clemson. And like, it was like the world stopped spinning for a minute there. It was like, how could a 5-star offensive lineman in the state of Ohio possibly not go to Ohio State? It was a huge deal. Like, I think Ohio State is probably the shining example of keeping kids home in all of the country. It's like, even with Georgia, for instance, like, that's an interesting state too, because it's like, you look at what Georgia is doing in the recruiting realm this year, in this cycle. I think Georgia's probably going to win the recruiting crown this year, right? I think that's possible.
No, Florida State.
What?
Manny's just Florida State.
Are you still on that bullshit? Okay, you're still.
Might happen. Never know.
Yeah,
that's right. We never know.
You never know.
Manny, we will know. We will know at some point.
You never know now, but we will know. Manny, I'll tell you what, buddy. If that comes true, we're gonna have to clip up every time you said that. Like, it's gonna be on the History Channel.
You got out hot take. Yeah. Out hot take Ari and
yeah, I like when you said that the first time. I was like, "Woo, boy!" I'm not even sure I would say something like that, but yeah, you never know. Jeremiah Smith, huh? He's gonna flip the Florida State, and all the marbles are gonna come. But let me go look at Georgia for a second here. The team rankings are, they have 26 commitments, 4 5-star prospects, 17 4 stars. and 8 of the 26 players that are committed to Georgia are from the Peach State.
That is just shockingly low. But again,
here's the best part.
How can we criticize them? They're number 1.
They're only going to sign one player in the top 10 in Georgia this year. And that player is Dylan Raiola, who's not even from Georgia.
This is not even a Georgia kid.
I don't know. And here's the best part about it, guys. The number 10 player in the state of Georgia ranks number 62 nationally. So they're all like top 70 players, all 10 of them. And Georgia's only getting Raiola. Now, Georgia's done a pretty good job in the lower half of the they got 16, they've got 14, they've got 12, and they got 21, all of whom are in the top 170. So they've got guys. But when you think about how good their recruiting class is, and then you compare it to the top 60, they've literally left 9 top 60 players out there, and they're still going to win the recruiting crown despite that. And I guess the number one notion is that, people that live in Gwinnett County or in Atlanta are very transient, and a lot of the players that come there have not grown up in Georgia or don't have Atlanta roots, which is what is the reason for that. But the funniest response that I have to that stat is it doesn't matter where anybody's from when Georgia's recruiting nationally. So why does it matter for the kids than where they're from in Atlanta? You would still think that the conversion rate would be closer just because anybody could get in the car and drive 55 minutes to Athens from Atlanta to check it out. Even if they grew up in Tennessee or Florida or Texas or something and moved to Atlanta, the proximity alone would still be enough for how well that this program has recruited nationally to close. Florida State has 3 top 7 players in the state of Georgia. 3 of the top 33 players nationally in the state of Georgia are going to Florida State. Ohio State has 2, South Carolina has 1, Tennessee has 1, and Georgia has 1. I think it is hilarious that this is the numbers, and you would never think in a million years that it would work out this way. And it's anybody else would get criticized for this. They'd be like, what the hell are you doing? This is incredible. What a mismanagement of talent in recruiting. And it's Kirby knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Also, it's part of its geography too. There's just so many power programs close by. Auburn is 2 hours from Atlanta. So I guess if you lived in the western part of Atlanta, you're just as close to Auburn as you are Georgia, and Tennessee is very close as well. So here, another program, I think Bishop McDevitt in Harrisburg is also a program that I think Penn State has struggled to recruit well. So any of our listeners.
Well, here's the thing with Penn State, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've thought a lot about this. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh may as well be different states. It is a long, diverse state, and being in Erie and being in Pittsburgh and being in Philadelphia is very different. So Penn State, which is in central Pennsylvania, up in the mountains nowhere, doesn't necessarily have a connection to Philadelphia. It doesn't necessarily have a connection to Pittsburgh. They're far, and even if you're a 3-hour drive away, it's still kind of a pain in the ass to get to State College from those places. So, being able to have a stranglehold on the city of Pittsburgh is not as easy for Penn State as it is for Ohio State and Cleveland, a state away. So what James Franklin has had to do is resort to recruiting New Jersey, the DMV area, and of course Pennsylvania. And I think that as you've gone and looked at the way that Penn State has recruited the last year or two, they seem to have dramatically improved their positioning in Pennsylvania high schools, but also have done a good job in New Jersey. They've done a good job in DC, and their recruiting classes in general are pretty diverse. If you look at their 2024 class, they've got 8 from Pennsylvania out of their 24 commits, 3 Wisconsin, 2 Florida, 2 Maryland, 1 Connecticut, 1 DC, 1 Georgia, 1 Massachusetts, 1 Michigan, 1 Jersey, 1 New York, 1 North Carolina, 1 Ohio. That's a pretty efficient geographical reach from James Franklin.
Grace, when you were covering Clemson, probably South Carolina was down. So they probably had, Columbia is obviously the biggest city in the state. They probably did pretty well in Columbia for the kids they want. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, they went into Antonio Williams was a big one. They got out of the Columbia area. Irmo High School is right outside of Columbia and has been one that has sort of flipped back and forth between the two schools in recent years. But I would say Clemson, when they were on the national stage, did most of their damage in the suburbs of Atlanta and in Florida, in South Florida or in Tampa, especially when they went on that run with those big wide receivers. But
and Alabama, they did.
Yeah, they've gotten into Texas, they've gotten into Alabama. South Carolina is a funny state, though, but Charleston also has like some sneaky good talent.
Yeah, Ari, any thoughts on South Carolina? I mean, on Clemson recruiting? You want to share with us?
It's the thing with Clemson has always been they suck and their programs start. No, I'm kidding.
You can't kick a field goal.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I actually thought they played really well on Saturday and probably deserved to win that game if it wasn't for that strip sack. Kind of was a real kick in the knackers there, right, Grace?
Yeah, I thought the 3rd and 1 play call was the worst thing we saw all day, outside of Notre Dame not having enough defenders on the field.
Money.
Did you lose money on that, Ari, or did you win money on that?
Money.
You won money. Okay, all right. All right. I don't know if this is a good.
What were the questions about Clemson? You want me to tell me?
No, I was just because you have your Clemson.
No, Clemson. Are the Mr. Diamond in the rough? I don't know. Their plan has been certainly as good as anybody's in the country. They've done a lot in Georgia and Florida, like Ray said. And like, I'm trying to go back and I look at like what their best recruiting class was. I think it was in 18, right? Was that when they were in the top 5?
I think it was 2020, like Brazil, DJU.
Yeah. In 18, they finished 7. So 2020.
They finished 3, I think, right?
Number 3. It's their highest rated class in the Dabo Swinney era. 6 in Georgia, 3 in Florida, 2 in Bama, 2 in North Carolina, 2 in South Carolina. And then they picked up, pieces of the puzzle all over the place from California to Texas. And I feel like that's probably the wheelhouse for them in terms of geographical leans. And I think things have gotten a little bit more difficult in South Carolina with the emergence of South Carolina's, recruiting success. North Carolina has dipped into South Carolina a few times too in the last few years. And Mac Brown is one hell of a recruiter. So, Clemson is still king. When Clemson comes in and knocks on your door, you probably listen to them the most. But, South Carolina isn't necessarily known as the burgeoning capital of high school football talent. So, they've had to really spend a lot of time in Atlanta and they've done a good job of, taking the best players in their general geographical region, but also finding the underrated studs all over the place, bringing them into the program and watching them flourish. It's a shame what happened to them.
Can I add one thing? Can I add one thing on Clemson? Just because I looked this up when I was doing, which freshmen are actually playing this year. 25 of the 26 players they've signed have seen the field at some point this year. Wow. So I know that's his sales pitch, right? We're going to play our freshmen and we're not going to take transfers. Well, he's playing them.
Yeah, that's a good stat.
That's got to be, I can't imagine someone's played all of their freshmen, so that's got to be up there. Before we get to the mailbag, so I've got a food etiquette question, Ari. Is this for all 3 of you? But I don't know why. I just thought of Ari. So on Saturday at a pregame tailgate at my son's fraternity at Wake Forest, they had like big barbecue, whatever.
Do they have scrimps?
No, they had like pulled pork, ribs, coleslaw, a bunch of stuff. So whoever ordered this did a great job ordering food. Whoever got this going did not do a good job of getting other things like plates and stuff. So they like ran out of plates very early. So one of my son's friends just finished his food, like messy plate, like sauce everywhere, coleslaw, whatever. And he was about to like throw it away. And Gabe was like, no, let me have that. So Gabe just grabs his plate, the used plate from his friend and the fork and just goes through the line and puts his food on there and eats. Is that like
what would you have wanted him to do? There was no more.
Maybe wait for more plates. See if there's plates elsewhere. So
were they going to bring new plates to the thing? I would have done.
They brought new plates like 10 minutes later. So, but Ari, clearly you have no problem with this.
No, I would have done the same thing. I don't want the taters to get cold.
Okay.
he wiped it down, right? Like he cleaned it with
no.
Why would you wipe it down? It's the same food.
Wait, did you say same fork?
Yeah.
Like the kid ate from the fork. Then Gabe went in with it to scoop the meat, and then Gabe ate from the fork.
Yeah.
And he double dipped with the fork and put it into the vat.
And then
The
Gabe
barbecue?
his plate.
And then Gabe ate it.
One of his friend's younger brothers who was about to do it, and I think the
That's-
mom was horrified. But then just at that point, some new plates came. So, Manny, what's your thought on this? You okay with this? Too gross or?
Yeah, as a father of two girls who are not, they try not to be gross, I would have been grossed out. So yes, I would have said, don't do it. Wait for the plates.
Yeah.
What do you
right?
think is going to happen here? Is he going to catch some deadly virus and pass away? It's just tuna salad. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
And I mean, I've heard some stories that during pledging, I think they did do far grosser things while pledging. So
True.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Grace, what say you? Are you okay with this, or are you horrified?
I'm okay with the plate. I'm slightly horrified at the fork. I think that's a little sus.
But he couldn't have wiped it down. Like at the very least, wipe it down.
They didn't have any napkins. What was he going to do? Wipe his jersey with it?
19-year-old.
It's a lot of
Are you
courage.
I would be
aware
more
of
of the like I would be more inclined to just like go just like grab a few chicken fingers with my hands and go sans
Are
plate.
you like unaware of the recycling crisis in this country? And like he was just trying to save plastic for the next guy. Like,
Yeah, he was thinking about the environment.
Yeah,
That's all.
what Gabe did is stopped a fork from floating into a walrus's eye next week. So you should be thinking, yeah.
He's so selfless.
Perfect. Yeah. So he was also wearing the same clothes, shorts as the night before, because I don't think he'd done wash in 2 weeks either. So he was saving the washing detergent or something. So,
what did you think, Mitch, as his dad?
What did I think? I was slightly grossed out about it at first, but I was like, it's all this, like, I kind of with Ari, like, it's all the same food and stuff. It's not like
yeah.
Someone's like,
it's not like he put a piece of pizza on a plate that had ketchup on it or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was the same food product on each. So
I think he's resourceful and cares about our environment, and you did a good job as a father.
Thank you, Ari. I appreciate it. So.
I like
right.
Cam's comment, right? By the way,
yeah. All right, camera producer would not a fan of that. Put it that way. So yeah. All right, so some good mailbag questions. Ari finally returned to writing for The Athletic this week, which was good, and did his mailbag, recruiting mailbag. So we had some good questions.
Still selling more subs than everybody else, though, so it's fine.
that you.
I'm kidding, guys.
That you answered in the mailbag and some that you didn't. This one has come up throughout the years. It's not the first time I don't think you've answered in the mailbag. But Quentin asked, should top quarterback recruits count for more in the rankings? See Alabama or SEC versus the Pac-12. Ari, give a shortened version of what you said, and then I'd like to hear what Grace and Manny say. But I thought you had a well thought out, because the easy answer is, yeah, sure, it's the most important position. Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know in theory how you would even do it to be effective, because if you give a recruiting bump to a quarterback, then you have to give everybody a bump, and then you're back to where you started from, right? So the notion of this is more so of if you hit on a player and Trevor Lawrence is your quarterback or Justin Fields is your quarterback and they're 5-star players who actually turned out to be great, how do you properly account for that? Like Drake May, I think, would be the perfect instance of that in this year's college football world, because he, I believe, was a 4-star prospect and now is
a 4-star, yeah.
The second best quarterback, if not the best quarterback in college football. It's like, how could you account for that in the team talent rankings? And it's like, I understand the urge to want to do it. I just don't know what the application is. The entire realm of the 247 Sport team talent composite is based on total talent and the law of averages playing out. And if you start fiddling with the weight, especially if the weight is the same for everybody at the same position, then you're going to get scenarios like this Alabama team that's just more weighted in the numbers department. Well, they have 5 top 160 players at the quarterback position on their roster, and they all stink right now anyway. Then it's not going to do anything. So I don't know. Like I think that the notion or the idea of doing that makes sense. I don't know what the application would be.
Manny?
Yeah, I'm with Ari. I don't know how you sort of add bonus points. I mean, how many quarterback busts do we have every single year, right? Like
more than non-busts, probably.
Right. So I don't know how you apply it. I mean, I think the concept is probably smart, but it just, again, it's how you apply it, and I don't know that it's applicable.
It's like overthinking it. Like Clemson gets, you mentioned that 2020 class, Chris, like DJU, it's a 5-star. So like, do you give them bonus points for getting that? Well, he didn't work out for Clemson, still might work out for Oregon State, although that's to be determined there. So it's like, I don't know what your thoughts on this, Grace, but it's just, in theory, it kind of makes sense, but when you kind of put pen to paper and figure out a formula, I don't know if it does.
Yeah, I don't know what that formula would be, right? Like how you decide how to weight it, and then I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument that your team ranking is getting a bump when you land an elite quarterback anyway. Like right now, we've got, I think it's 8 of the top 10 quarterbacks in this class are top 100 prospects. So there, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I fully understand the question, but
It's just because quarterback, like I think Drake May is a perfect example. Like North Carolina hit on Drake May, so shouldn't that recruiting class have received a bump because they have this great quarterback?
I think the bottom line is that people are trying to come up with a solution to make the 247 team talent rankings more foolproof after the fact. And the fact of the matter is that they were actually really great before the transfer portal started blowing them up. So now we're at this weird intersection between the high school rankings and what they meant and how to reorganize the list based on, players who transfer to new places to come up with a more reliable list. Because in 2017, you could look at the talent composite rankings and identify which 8 teams are going to win the national title that year. And this is the first year since that list became mainstream and was invented that I actually think there's a chance that a top 5 247 sport composite team talent team doesn't win the championship. So we'll see.
Another quarterback question from Don H. Does the success of transfer quarterbacks reduce the pressure to sign elite high school quarterbacks? Examples top of mind: Burrow, Hurts, Fields, Nix, Penix, Hartman, DJU. There's many more. I'd say, yeah, clearly. I mean, it's teams still. You ask a coach, he'd rather sign a 5-star and develop him, and he's my guy. He was in the program for 3 years if he's awesome. But that the pressure isn't there to do it because there's more examples of elite transfer quarterbacks than non-transfer quarterbacks. So do you guys agree?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think this is a new era. This is an era where you got to be great in the transfer portal, and if you're not, you're gonna be feeling like Clemson is right now. So it's the way it is. You got to identify talent in the transfer portal. It's the only way you win.
I think in order for it to take away from the pressure, you also have to be a place that can effectively count on your ability to land a player in the portal. It's like just because they exist and are going to places and proving to be successful doesn't mean that you can do it. Like if you can't develop players or you can't convince high school players in the high school ranks to come to your school at the quarterback position, what makes you think that Sam Hartman's going to want to come play for you? Like that's the hardest thing. That's like if you go back and look at all the names that he listed, how many of them actually didn't sign top tier quarterbacks out of high school before getting those players? Like even Notre Dame with Sam Hartman, didn't they sign 2 top 100 players?
Buckner was top 100
the past 2 years, and
yeah, I mean Buckner
was a top 100 player. Like I mean, they have guys coming out of the high school ranks at that position too. So, Oregon State might be the what's the word I'm looking
for?
The exception to the rule here, but DJU was also trending downward when he went there. So like it's to me, it's all one and the same thing. It's like you got to be good at accumulating talent. If you don't get a quarterback in a class, then certainly you can sit back and wait for the portal to produce somebody, but you got to go close then too, and that's not always a guarantee either.
Yeah, it's not something you want to depend on, but I think it lessens the pressure. Like in 10, 15 years ago, if you struck out on your quarterback recruiting and they didn't develop, you were kind of screwed. Sure, there were some transfers, but there weren't many. Now you can go get them, and you can, if you're Ole Miss, you can go get 3 or 4, and at the same time, and if they're willing to sit behind one another. Garrett,
did you guys see this week when Caleb Williams, speaking of transfer quarterbacks, took a snap to the beanbag there when he wasn't looking?
Did not see that.
Did not.
I just saw that for the first time, and it was hilarious. He was like up at the line, calling an audible and like looking around, like, hey, blue 42, and the center snapped.
That's Ari's type of humor right there.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Wait, Mitch, I have a question about your
back to food, the barbecue. Portal. Okay.
No, sorry, your portal theory. Isn't there a line of thinking that like if you rely too much though on the transfer quarterback, the 5 stars are no longer going to be interested in you? Like remember when we talked to Michael Tollefson, the Arizona State 2025 commit, and he was like, yeah, like Arizona State told me that if they take a quarterback from the portal, it's just going to be a quick fix. Like, I am the guy. So I do wonder if, like, I don't know if, like, is it putting like a Band-Aid on a bigger wound if you just go to the portal every year and then a 5-star?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could hurt Ole Miss. I just talked about him. I think it could impact their ability to land a 5-star, a top kid out of high school. You know, other coaches are going to be like, hey, look at their roster right now. They've got 3 high major transfers on their roster right now. You know, you're going to go there and you're going to be recruited over. So Ari just slacked up putting that thing. I think he wants us to look at this video and giggle. Is that true, Ari? Because Ari's giggling.
You watched it just now, Ari?
Yeah, I just saw it right now. I think that's really funny.
But Mitch, like Ole Miss, for example, right? You talk about that. Like they signed Austin Simmons and they landed Trevor Jackson.
True.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah, no, that's the good point. Yeah, I mean Trevor Jackson.
I mean, I think more of the better, guys.
Like
it's obviously
like,
if you
Trevor
get more,
go ahead, Ari.
If you get more options, then the more likely is that one of them pans out too. You know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Simmons was a guy that had reclassified for 2 classes, and Trevor Jackson was a late riser who obviously we think is pretty good. Are you guys? Chris, are you laughing at the video or at Ari?
No,
I'm laughing at the video, and I'm laughing at the video, and I'm laughing at like Ari and watching this video. But it's like it's only 5 seconds, so it's almost like a boomerang on Twitter when you watch it over and over again.
I like the Arizona State players' reaction to it. They're like, that's a penalty.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I did not think it was gonna be that funny when Ari described it, but
Ari, yeah, I'm sorry. I accused you of being sophomoric, but that was in fact funny. So
that was funny.
I'm fine being sophomoric if it's funny.
I got an X out of this.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Grace, don't watch it for the 38th straight time. All right. Garrett S. and Ari answered this. Will the Oregon beatdown derail Coach Prime's recruiting train? No. If anyone thinks that's the case, they haven't really followed recruiting or Deion Sanders. It slows down the hype train around the program's ability to win 8-9 games. If anyone thought that, or if anyone thought that they were a playoff team, which is kind of absurd to think that. Absurd, even though they're a hot start. But look at the people that are coming for visits and stuff. I assume you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think as long as Deion's in charge and he's getting good results, there's going to be more people that are excited to come play for Colorado. I don't think any of these high school recruits are looking at Colorado right now and thinking to themselves, yeah, they got their asses handed to them by Oregon, so I'm not going there anymore. Like it's different when you're building something up versus being an established program and losing to, like, you know, a Middle Tennessee or something like that. Some
that would never happen.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, like, to me, that's
what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more. I think wins and losses are more damaging when it's an embarrassing team than it is maybe, you know, another quality opponent, another top 25 team. Like, nobody's going to look at that and say, you know, Oregon should have won. I mean, Colorado should have won that game. Or
okay, quick round table. That got me thinking. And you guys can think. I'll start with Manny. You guys have all been beat writers for different period of times. Grace is going to be more difficult because the team she covered was so good. Worst loss of a team that you covered, Manny. So I'm going to throw out Miami. 2 options. Miami, is it the MTS, the Middle Tennessee game, or is it the Clemson beatdown when they didn't score 70 points?
It's the FIU game.
Okay,
when they lost to FIU, the inner city team that is not supposed to be anywhere near their level.
Did you taunt Miami fans after that?
I did a little bit, yes.
Oh, nice.
They didn't like it, so
yeah.
No, that to me is by far the worst loss in Miami history.
Okay, Grace, was there a bad loss when you covered Clemson? Grace is a winner. She's just a flat out winner. The team she covered is a winner.
They did not lose a lot. I covered I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, but when they lost up at Syracuse.
Okay.
And Dabo went into the Syracuse locker room afterwards. That was the Kelly Bryant year, I'm pretty sure. And then Zarek Cooper played. I think Kelly got hurt. That was just a weird, a disorienting loss. What's happening?
I watched that from Central Barbecue in Memphis, Tennessee. I remember exactly where I was.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good. Ari?
It would have to be Ohio State's loss to Purdue or Iowa in one of those 2 years in 17 and 18. They got their ass kicked on the road 2 years in a row to teams that were like 75 spots below them in the talent composite. But I think the most embarrassing loss, if you ask them, would probably be the 2016 31-0 loss to Clemson in the playoff. Now that's not a loss to Middle Tennessee State or got upset by a terrible program. That was just a team kicking your ass on the biggest stage and proving that they're better than you in every facet. And I think that's more humiliating for an Ohio State type team than, losing a weird game that they were sleepwalking through, or, something weird happened. Getting your ass kicked is very embarrassing, I think. So, yep, those are the three that come to my mind in the 10 years that I was covering them.
Did you were there, I assume?
All of them, yeah.
Grace, were you there for that game? Did you guys know each other?
No, we didn't, but we sat next to each other. What was it, 2018?
19.
19?
Had you
That was
started
the first time I
next
ever
week.
met Ari.
What'd you think of Ari? First
We sat
impression.
next to each other for the 2019 Ohio State Clemson playoff game, and it was one of the best games. That was the one where Sean Wade got ejected in the second quarter for targeting, and then Clemson came back and won, right?
Yes, Clemson came back. Everyone in the press box was like, the Ohio State writers were like, do we need to start booking our travel for, where was it, New Orleans?
Yeah.
I thought Ari was the funniest, weirdest, most entertaining person I had ever met in my life that night.
What do you think of him now?
The exact same.
Same.
Yeah.
Is that a compliment,
Weird in
Ari?
the best way.
I'm unapologetically who I am. So we were laughing and having a good time. That's what you're supposed to do when you're covering a game,
I just remember him being like, house call, and then it was like the fourth quarter, and he looked over at me, and a little PG-13, but he was nervous because he hadn't covered a game that close all year, and he was like, it's the fourth quarter and I don't know what to write. And he was freaking out. And it was just so surreal. I loved every minute of it.
I get nervous sometimes when I'm covering a big game and I don't have a grasp of my opinion yet in the fourth quarter.
I do
don't
too.
like that feeling.
I think that's probably a lot of writers like that.
Yeah.
So driving back from Winston-Salem this week, we first thing we were going to listen to some music or a podcast, a different podcast, and I said, "Can we listen to Ari and the reaction podcast first?"
Mm-hmm.
So we're driving back, and you were pretty tame. You were tired, well documented. You didn't get much sleep, or you had to drive. Whatever.
Yeah,
it was very tame, Ari. But a couple things you said, I just look over, and the look on Heather's face was like, "Now I know what you deal with." Basically,
what did I say?
I can't even remember the specifics, and there weren't that many great Aries.
I was gonna say I was pretty tired and low key on that episode, so.
Yeah,
she if she's rolling her eyes at that one, then she should not tune into the rest of the shows.
Yeah,
I want to know what our viewers think of Ari. If you're listening to Ari for the first time, what's their impression?
I mean, there's a lot of really mean comments in our reviews. You can go read those.
No, I don't want to do that. That sounds not fun.
Ready for a little trivia?
Sure.
Yeah.
My AirPods are dying. Can I just switch headphones?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if I don't hear the trivia question, I can't get it wrong.
Okay. This one's hard because I forgot to come up with the trivia until about an hour ago, and I was doing something else and I didn't have time to do some research. So this is from that project I have been working on, a research project. So from 2009 through 2018 recruiting classes. So a 10-year stretch.
Okay.
There were 2 top 100 quarterbacks who played quarterback in college, but were drafted as non-quarterbacks. So you understand the question?
What were the years?
2009 through 2018.
Braxton Miller's one.
Got it? That's one. And Russell Shepard fits into this category, but was not. First of all, he didn't really play quarterback at LSU, and he wasn't drafted. So there's another. So Braxton Miller played quarterback and was drafted as a non-quarterback. One other player played quarterback and another position in college, and he was drafted this other position. Yeah, Ari, we need some background music, Ari.
I'm trying to think. Tim Tebow was drafted as a quarterback, right?
And it was.
I thought about that too.
It was before he played in college in 2008.
I'm not even on. Yeah,
By the way,
I mean,
am I officially
were
old?
on,
Like as an empty nester now, like we watch Jeopardy every night when we eat dinner. Is that like, or am I just? Is that
Do you have
an
a
old-
TV dinner that you unfold onto an open tray
No, we
table?
cook dinner. We don't have a frozen dinner. We
That's
cook
when
it.
you really. That's like you have a hungry man and you put it on the foldable
Yeah.
tables
No.
and you sit on your recliners next to each other.
No.
This is
salmon
really good
last
music. I'm into it
Yeah,
a little bit.
we just- we
hold
just-
on. If I were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I would just shit my pants. TV.
night. Too much pressure.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
What about not knowing anything either? That might
I don't,
not, that might be a
know
hindrance
anything
too.
either. Yeah.
So you guys, Manny, you have this look on your face. Are you stumped?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of somebody, and I'm just stumped. I can't.
I
this
think
is a
he's
hard
still in the
question.
NFL. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. I'll give
Is he
you
a
a hint.
receiver?
Was he a wide receiver? Yeah.
He is no.
Okay. Well, then I really don't know.
Yeah, no, me neither.
If Cam didn't cheat, he got one of them right. He's our producer Cam. If you guys see the comments,
Hmm.
Blake Bell.
Shoelace?
Blake Bell.
Blake Bell.
I
Okay.
don't know who Blake Bell is. So
You don't know who Blake
good on
Bell
him.
is?
Mm-mm.
Do you watch college football?
No, sometimes.
Okay.
By the way, Cam did not cheat. Just to
Okay,
defend
yes.
him.
Pride of Bishop Carroll
Carroll.
High School. I don't know where Bishop Carroll High School is. Is it in Cam? Are you going to tell us where Bishop Carroll is? In Wichita? Is that your
Is that
high
where
school?
you're from, Cam?
Pull me. I'm from Wichita, so yes, I grew up watching him.
Okay, so
Okay.
we
Just a little
credit
insight
you
there.
for getting it, but you had some inside knowledge there. So yeah, Blake Bell was a top 100 quarterback who I think started for 2 years, maybe, or started for 1 year at Oklahoma. The Belldozer package, Ari. I don't know. He big guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
Tight ends.
Yeah. So I think he's still in the NFL. I think I saw him over the weekend. Maybe.
Chiefs.
Good job, Cam.
Yeah.
Two Super Bowl titles.
Yeah. Good for him.
Mhm.
So
Good job, Grace.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Ari.
Thank you
How you
so
doing?
much for listening to Stars Matter. We will catch you next week.